Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 7th meeting of the Town of Orange Planning and Zoning Commission. Before we begin tonight's proceedings, I'd like to point out the location of the emergency exits. The first one is to my right, your left, in the middle of the room where most of us enter and exit the building from. There are two additional exits in the hallway to the rear of the building, again, to my right, your left. One immediately upon entering the hallway on the left-hand side and one at the end of the hallway. Commissioner Kaplan and Commissioner Mangione will not be able to attend tonight, neither will Town Planning Consultant Brian Miller. I'd like to ask those seated at the table to introduce themselves.
Hi, Tammy Costello, Administrative Assistant.
I'm Ozzie Parenti.
Judy Smith-Morgan.
Paul Denise, Zoning Administrator and Enforcement Officer.
Commissioner Walter Clark. The first item on tonight's agenda is the update on the Marsh Hill Road, Edison Road Development Study.
The request letters with the RFP are going out tomorrow, and I have a list of planners. What I should have emailed you my list. Most of them are recommendations from Paul Grimmer, and I've added a few. What I'll do is I'll email that out to the Commission tomorrow morning, and if you want to add anybody onto that list, please feel free to do so. The only thing I want to talk to Paul about is a response date.
What is the response date in the letter? Does it contain?
Well, I don't have one right now, so I figured maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
I would say 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
I'd like to get this moving along so we can get it,
Okay.
in the works, and we're coming up on the revision of the town plan of conservation and development, and I think this would be a nice tool to have in hand before we get too deep into that, redo of that plan. So I'd like to, why don't we make it 2 weeks and we'll speed things up, because then we have to schedule interviews and so on, so. So that will be mailed out tomorrow then?
Yes.
Okay, great. And you'll send everybody an email with the list of consultants that were...
I had meant to do that.
Okay.
I asked the Commission last time if they wanted anybody added to
Yeah.
the list, but I'd like you to see it.
Good. Okay. Well, we can send it out and then get the list and we could add to it at a later date. Okay. The next item on tonight's agenda is 307 Racebrook Road, formerly Recreation Showroom. This was open last meeting, and we had some issues that were outstanding.
Good evening. My name is Rick Raymond. I'm with Anthony Giordano's Consulting Engineers in West Haven, and I'm here on behalf of my client Ken Ginsberg. Just to summarize from last week, it's 307 Racebrook Road. It's a C2 commercial zone. It's 22,802 square foot lot. It's an existing non-conforming site. We are renovating the building from 9,087 square feet to 6,250 square feet to medical and professional offices. I do have a meeting with for Monday with traffic and police. I'm on a 4 o'clock meeting. And
Is that the town police and town traffic, or is that?
yes.
Okay. And we have the letter here from DOT right here.
Yes, there was an email I got from DOT. They're very backlogged up there. There was a few comments that I got from Ernest LaGoya, and his comments will all be addressed in the final plans. We're going to add a stop sign and keep right signs, just to make sure the vehicle maneuverability works well.
Do you have an update for us regarding the interconnection with Webster Bank?
Yeah, as far as that's concerned, I was pretty much handling that. I had a number of calls into Susan. I think her name is Trisante or something similar to that. I did reach her once, and she was unable to talk to me, but I had a call up there probably 8 or 9 times, and she did return my call once. So we're still working on that, and hopefully I'll get some sort of response by the next meeting.
My client is very interested in doing that.
Yeah. Paul, have you spoken to the branch manager?
Yes, he has nothing. He has no control over it.
Okay. I was more thinking that he might be able to get a push to that person in the main office, or perhaps somebody who...
I was thinking about going over her head.
That's what I was going to say.
Because she's been uncooperative with the applicant and says that maintains that the bank's not going to do it. But sometimes if you contact someone above them...
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. You know,
You're going to have to do it. There's no way around
and
it.
find out who her superior is, because sooner or later they're going to come in and they'll have to do it.
Right, I mean, the fire marshal feels strongly about that occurring.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think we should too, as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And you're going in front of the Orange Police Department
On Monday.
Monday.
And to address any of the comments from the meeting 2 weeks ago, I think we are going to raise the stone veneer in the front up to the window level, to give it some more aesthetic there. There's all existing landscaping on site. We're going to do a little planting out in front.
And clean up the sides as well and do some planting. Correct?
Yeah, it's heavily vegetated. It's growing onto the building there.
Yeah. I see in part of the plan they were going to clean that out and then replant it with some shrubbery.
Well, there's very nice shrubs in here. They
Okay.
just haven't been trimmed in
Okay.
10, 15 years, and they're growing onto the building.
So, Paul, we really can't take any action until we have
No,
these.
no,
So we'll have to continue this to our next
that's
meeting.
correct.
then.
You'll incorporate the state DOT comments as well as whatever comes out of the Monday meeting with our local safety commission?
Yes,
Into your final
and the
plan?
comments that I got from the fire marshal in
Yes.
regards to the striping.
And then hopefully in that time, perhaps we'll skip that woman that you've been trying to get a hold of and try to get a hold of her superiors.
Sure.
And take it from there. Okay. We thank you very
Okay,
much, and
thank you.
hopefully we can bring this to a head at our next meeting. Thank you. The next item on tonight's agenda is a site plan application submitted by property owner Eugene LaGrasse for property known as 304 Boston Post Road, which is the Taylor Rental Building. There will be an expansion to an existing parking, and an application of certification of soil erosion and sediment control measures has also been submitted. Would the applicant like to come forward, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, staff, my name is Jeff Gordon. I'm principal with Codispodian Associates. I'm doing business at 504 Boston Post Road here in the town of Orange. And I'm representing Mr. Lagasse today in his application to expand the facility known as Taylor Rental. What you might be aware of is within probably the last few years, there was major facade renovations done on the building, as it were, but now the plan is to expand the facility in a way to enclose the outdoor storage that, as you look at the building, is found on the right side of the building. And what we're talking about is, this is the existing building right here, and this area here has a little bit of parking where I'm highlighting, and then this area is fenced in with storage. So we're looking to expand the building, square it off, have a loading dock and another drive-in loading, and basically take the equipment that's outside and move it in. We will maintain the circulation around the building. We'll have the interconnection take place with the Party City site up here on the north east corner of the property. We are going to relocate the propane tank over to this corner. And we're showing some striping of parking spaces which we really don't feel are needed, but in order to demonstrate compliance for other uses that might be somewhere down the road with the building, we are showing how additional parking could be facilitated on the property.
Jeff, what measures are going to be put in place to protect the propane filling station? Are there bollards? I didn't see any shown on the...
It's a fenced-in area, not too dissimilar to what they have right now. And also setting it off to the side out of harm's way is probably the best thing. It meets the fire standard for setbacks. We had some discussion with Tim Smith about that. There are certain requirements that need to be met. And ostensibly, one that we have is the actual fill cap. We're setting it away from the property lines as much as we really can. There was some question as to whether it's a 10-foot setback or a 25-foot setback. We put the filler at 25 feet just to make sure that there's no question about that.
Did we have any comment from the fire marshal on this, or has he signed off on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The issues with the fire marshal probably extend more to the existing building. There are a number of code issues within the existing building that Tim and I talked about. This is going to be a good time to address these. And prior to any building permit being issued, he expects to sit down with the owner and with Fred Trotta to find out what we can do as far as certain separation, extra materials that might be required in the ceilings of one area, checking the stair access points, things of that nature. There's a mezzanine in the building that was probably a storage area that's now occupied, so there's certain issues about egress and code compliance that Tim feels are solvable. He just wants to use this as an opportunity. He signed off on the site plan aspect of it, but he's reserving to sit down on the building permit until those issues are all taken
Okay.
care of.
That was, all the sign-offs are obtained, and the only two comments were, again, similar to what Jeff said, that the fire marshal wants the code compliance issues on the interior of the building to be taken care of before a new building permit is issued. And I think John Van Arman also wants some additional information on the sewer line, Jeff.
Right. Yeah, he's basically the addition goes over the lateral there, but that's not really an issue. That's a problem. Other aspects that you would need to be aware of is the existing site is a curb cut from one side to the other. There's a landscape island that comes out perpendicular to the front of the building at present, and we're not going to be able to comply with the 20-foot front green strip, but we're going to basically be working at really reducing the level of nonconformity that is there. We had extensive talks with DOT. We tracked down the 2001 plan for the widening of the Post Road. And the 2001 plan has been completed for 6 years, and the state underestimated the cost of acquisition of the right-of-ways to do that. That's why it's not really been moving forward. But in meeting with Ernie LaGoya and with Paul Holmes up at DOT, what we've done is we've reworked the aprons and we've changed the islands so we have a clearly distinct landscaped island out front. We have two clearly distinct driveway aprons as well. And what we do is we have the actual line of the future widening of the Post Road. And what we've done is the islands along the side we've brought to those points and wrap them around, so those would not need to be changed. And what we've done for present, being that there's a manhole present here, we've come out with our driveway to the edge of the existing pavement so as to maximize the green area until such time when that road widening takes place, because it could be years before that happens, and we might as well keep the green and not reset a manhole and whatnot. That would be taken care of as part of that contract. So the line is right along here. You can barely see it goes through that manhole over there, and it would be right in the back of that manhole coming straight down. So we're buying a few extra feet of grassed area, and this was something that was recommended in our discussions with DOT. What you see there is their design, basically. So we have that. Again, what we've been allowed to do now is create this parking area along the front of the building, whereas before we had that island coming out, breaking that off. So people can pull in here, pull across here, and the connection for Party City would be right opposite that. This area with Party City is wide open the whole way. We're going to be closing that off and just channeling the access point at one point there. We have a fenced area here. There's been some compromise of people parking from Party City over on their property at times, so we want to more clearly define where that's going to take place. We're relocating the fenced-in gate from where I'm showing it here. We're going to bring it straight across like that, and we're going to have a similar gated entry for the rear over here.
And that comes into question the parking analysis. You referred to number 19, where it's basically the decision of the commission whether or not there's ample parking on the site or not.
Right, this is not a use that really is standard here, but what we've been able to demonstrate would be 49 parking spaces are possible here, and existing there's 10 spaces. So
What I was referring to under our regulation 383-172-19, the 383-172 basically goes through the different uses and the amount of parking spaces required. And number 19 reads, other uses, sufficient off-street parking spaces shall be provided in connection with any use not listed in 383-172. Rental is not specifically listed. It might come under retail, but it's not listed specifically under rental agencies. As approved by resolution of the Commission as sufficient to preserve the purpose and intent of this section. So that's the consideration we have. If we were to go to retail parking, it would require somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 spaces, if I'm not mistaken.
that would be correct.
Yeah, 61 spaces if we consider the entire square footage as retail, and I know there's some office space, which is still 4, so it's going to be in that 60 area.
Right.
If there's 49, we're close to that.
Right.
Jeff, what is the square footage of the addition, and will that use be primarily warehousing, or will there be public access to that?
The addition is 5,494 square feet, and I believe that is just going to be for their use only. They would probably, where they tinker around with the lawnmowers, keep equipment in there, store equipment in there. That would be a continued operation along that line. So 5,494, I think, is the addition, squaring off the building, basically. We've worked on the drainage. We've worked with Scott Allen on this. And what we've done is we've created, there's some infiltration or some trenches that were added a few years back. And what we've done is we've added infiltrators, we've added a water quality structure, tying the roof drains into this, and then discharging into the existing large concrete vault structure that was left there when these trenches were put in, and then the overflow goes into a drainage ditch around the back. We had some calculations to demonstrate the management of that, which is an improvement to what is there. Also, the fact that we have a water quality structure where previously we didn't have one. The other thing we were dealing with was a lot of cross water from other adjoining properties. We're managing our water, we're not managing their water. Their water will still continue to go to the rear of their property, as much of it has done, and some of it's come onto ours, but the rest of it will be prevented from doing that. So we did submit an S&E plan as well. Not that there's a tremendous amount of, it's a paved site, so there's not a lot of disturbance. In the back, will be some disturbance. We have a silt fencing wrapping along the back. We have a construction entrance. We have a silt sack by our storm scepter that we're putting in. And then we have some filters. There's an existing leak off that goes into that ditch. And the reason why we maintained that, we created a little high point, ran most of the water back into the storm scepter, into the system, but we maintained that little leak off in order to take this loading dock and have some positive drainage just really from the loading dock. Otherwise, you know, we would try to put a trench drain in, and trench drains fill up with leaves, and they don't work after a while, but it's fairly flat, but it does have positive drainage out through that existing leak off, so we maintained that as well. On the landscaping plan, we've come in with some shrubs along the front of the building. I believe I have some English boxwood, a hedge. We've done some plantings in the front island. Some cotoneaster, some rhododendrons. We had to have some low vegetation because DOT, you should see me in Milford. The tree commission wants me to plant trees and DOT wants me to take them out. So we're always wrestling there. But we found that if we stay behind the street line and we have some low vegetation and maintain it low, we can work with them on that. We're relocating the existing sign over to this location here, and then we've added some shade trees. We've added some ash, and we also have added some viburnums along the property. So
Jeff, I didn't see any note for underground irrigation on that front island, or?
I believe there was a notation on the plan.
Proposed underground sprinkler.
Yeah, it was on
And
the
I actually
plan.
showed the head's location, because half the time they put them on the state right away, the state comes in and rips them out. So what I've done is I've located them back here, here, and here, and they'll water out that way. Now we get to an interesting situation here. The buildings themselves, now I have this and I have these that I can hand out. Oh, you got them already.
We have these already, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. These are mine, so I'll hold on to these. I was going to give you my one and onlys. The building facade treatment had been renovated about 3 years ago, just prior to your architectural standards being in place. So now we don't comply with your architectural standards, and we're in the dilemma of expanding the building and keeping the basic look of the building without having it turn into a hodgepodge of different materials. We're trying to find a graceful way to answer the preferred material without looking like it's just something that we threw on there to satisfy your preferred material requirement and not really affect the overall look of the building. As you could tell going by there, the materials are very new. They haven't even weathered or discolored in any way, so we can match them very well. What they're going to do is they're going to relocate the entrance over and make it more symmetrical. They have an anodized steel vestibule with a curved roof on it to dress that up a little bit. In the storage area, what they were going to do is just create some recessed panels to keep the rhythm of the storefront windows as well, and just continue the same building materials around the perimeter of the building. We were discussing, you know, what could we do to incorporate preferred material, and I'm kind of at a loss as to what we could do to incorporate preferred material. And was that the overall intent, to take a 3-year-old facade treatment and try to tack something on? If there's any suggestions that you have, we're certainly open to them.
What is the material now?
It's a split-face block,
Yeah.
which is, it actually looks like almost like a vertical brick is the best way to describe it.
It's actually not too dissimilar to what the Christmas tree shops had, except they did it with a running bond. Those are brick block and painted, so it would look like a painted brick. So this is basically a painted split-face block. And that's on the front, and then we have a stucco treatment around the sides, and then you have the standing seam vertical mansard or fake roof treatment there as well. So we have what we have. We've added some plantings. We've added some trees on either end of it to spice that up a little bit there. We put some islands there, and we're very much willing to listen to suggestions.
You know, I
I don't know what wiggle room you guys have, is what it comes down to.
well, that's what I was kind of looking at, that, you know, I agree with what you're saying, that the face of the current building does look new, but we really don't have any wiggle room to eliminate the need for some of the approved materials in the application. I mean, we did take out the strict percentages, but we did leave in I think we worded it a substantial portion of the area. And I don't see any.
Can you refer me to this?
Yeah, it's 3A3-117 5B. And it reads, in any retail business, commercial, office park, or business office park zone, for all such facades and exterior walls that are parallel to or within 45 degrees of being parallel to a public street, a substantial portion of the area of all siding materials on that wall shall consist of quality wood siding, brick and/or stone masonry siding material. The Commission may also consider the limited use of cement fiberboard such as hardy plank, which is a clapboard. For purposes of such determination, the area of a siding on a wall, and that goes on to say that we take out the area of roof overhangs and windows and so forth. But as far as the suggestion goes, I don't see in our regulations any area where we can eliminate the call for it. And it's kind of ironic because we put the regulations in, and this has been the method of making everybody incorporate them at some time. When they come in to redo the building, then we say, okay, you've been grandfathered before, but now you've got to bring it up to our architectural standards, which was the intent of the regulation all along, the way it was worded.
This is exactly the opportunity to bring the building up to.
Correct. Unfortunately, this building was recently done over, and at the time, I think what Mr. Gordon is referring to, we used to only require for buildings in excess of 10,000 square feet, and when we redid the wording on it, we also figured, if it's good for large buildings, it should be good for all buildings. So we eliminated that threshold, that 10,000 foot threshold. Jeff, what if they were to put, along the front, if they went up a few feet with kind of even like a planter that could be, done in brick, a ledge in brick or stone or something of that nature. Say up to the.
Something along that area there?
I can't see where your finger was because it was.
Well, I have plantings along here, so you're talking about maybe creating an elevated stone face planter there?
Something of that nature.
You all right
along
with
there
that? Yeah, sounds good.
I can't think of any other way to address it, as you said, and kind of keep the continuity of the architecture that's there.
Yeah. So what I could do is bring it up. We have the glass here. We have a spandrel section along the bottom. So if we brought it up to that height and brought it along here and made it with a stone face, I have that boxwood hedge planting along there. We could plant that in that and introduce the stone material there. I don't think brick would look good. I think.
No, yeah.
I think you got to get something in a earth tone to match the earth tones of the building.
I would agree.
I think I'd be willing to do that.
Does the commission feel that would be substantial enough?
Well, in terms of the standards, the green part along the top there, is that problematic, or is that? I mean, in other words, are we talking about everything below that?
That's kind of a gray area because I think in the application they referred to it as siding, but which is not allowed as siding. But in the past, we have considered these roof treatments. So.
We did that on the LASIK eye around
We did it on the LASIK one. We did it on the PEZ building when we analyzed that. We consider that a continuation of the roof treatment.
Yeah, PEZ is in the industrial zone?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. How high up would that be, Jeff, approximately, the base of those windows? And could that be made a little bit more? It only looks to be about a foot. Is that correct?
The
It's about
spandrel
eight-
section, about 18, 20 inches.
I think it's 18 is what's...
Yeah, looks like it's 18 inches. You see what I'm talking about, the
Yes,
spandrel
yeah.
section there?
You're referring to the bottom of the windows.
Yes.
Well, there's basically, you have you have glass that you can see through, and then you have a glass that's blocked out. They call that, that's a spandrel glass. So the area on the top, there's a section, there's area on the bottom. So we're talking about make it uniform with the area on the bottom. Just continue that line along.
What if the window pattern, if you will, were reversed, so that the larger section is at the base? So we were going up, say, 24 inches or so. Would that be possible? I'm not sure with the window manufacturer. I mean, I'm sure it's not as simple as flipping them over. You see what I mean? How the
Well,
top part is.
Maybe I can ask the builder.
I'm trying to look at it in a way that we can consider it a substantial portion. Those are existing?
That's the existing picture.
Well, 18-inch high walls are a great height to sit on.
Which may not be what you want, though, either.
If it was a restaurant, it could constitute outside dining.
Well, there goes another problem.
So that's sort of what I was getting at with respect to the top piece there, if that's acceptable. That's
Yes.
a substantial portion of the facade.
Well,
that's
actually-
already acceptable. Now you're looking to,
Actually, when we consider that, if we're considering that part of the roof trim, we would take that out of the equation.
right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at everything below the,
Correct.
that
Facade there.
green piece across the top. And now you're just dealing with the rest of.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we think of substantial, it's not a majority, it's just, it's got to make
Enough to
an,
make
it's
a
got to make an
difference.
impact.
Make an
It's
impact,
got to show up.
exactly, yeah. And that was the purpose of rewording that, so that we did have some leeway to use common sense approach to As you can see from the photograph, the building itself is in very nice condition. The sidewalk there seems to be in a little bit of disrepair on that photograph, but. Paul, do you have any comments or suggestions or observations?
I would feel better if it were on the building.
If it were.
Yeah, if something was done to the facade of the building.
Right on the building itself in the lower end, instead of having like an offset there. But again, they could do the same idea, just bring it up with a stone face up to a certain point.
Well, see, if I'm putting shrubs along that, if I put the shrubs there, then it would block it. If I put a planter there, then you're going to see that and you're going to see the shrubs. No point.
understand, yeah.
No point in putting it in and hiding it. I understand Paul's point. Perhaps it could be added on the other side of the building, onto the building. Basically, if we put the stone wall over here, maybe we can pick it up between here, between there, along the way there and just apply that to the building.
Oh, I would think they would have to be, yeah. I was envisioning something going all the way across the front,
Right.
so yes. Yeah.
So part of it would be applied to the building, part of it would be a raised planter type thing. And the stone and the color, I liked it on the Drexel Heritage Building. I thought it kind of looked nice together there, so.
Yeah. What does the commission wish to, the thoughts on this? Or are there any other suggestions on another way to address the situation?
just thinking, Jeff, if there was a way to utilize the vertical space, you know, maybe every other, you know, do some stonework and go vertical instead of, you know, that low horizontal. But I don't, you would only do it where the windows are, and maybe the rest of the building would look.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Plain.
there is kind of a nice simplicity to this, and I don't want to, you know, for the sake of just trying to throw material on there, make it look like a real complicated, busy-looking building. I mean, this little vestibule that they're putting there, there's quite a little effort to come in with a metal roof, with the archway, the arch there, with the treatment there, to make that to be something a bit more of a focal point. If I start adding a lot of other things, I lose the focal point of that as an entrance. The horizontality that Bo suggested, I think, has some possibilities.
What's the, are those on the addition part of it there? Those aren't overhead doors, are they? Or
No, that's just taking the material and recessing it a couple of inches, kind of like when you would have coin brick on the corner of a building to make it look like columns, where they just pull them out a little bit. Here, they would just push them back a little bit to maintain the same rhythm that he has with the window treatment.
But what if the window treatment were extended? Are the windows?
Well, those aren't windows.
No, I
That
mean-
is a warehouse area there, so.
But I'm saying if you extended, you know, the windows all the way across
Right.
the addition there, would you now have acceptable building materials? You know,
It would certainly change the ratio.
you know. 'Cause then you'd have the green portion up on top, and you know the
And then the
all you'd have is the
additional stone part at the bottom would then
unacceptable.
be a substantial portion of what's exposed.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you talking about like doing the spandrel glass treatment there, so it looks like windows, but they're really blocked off on the inside?
Yes, yeah. I think what Commissioner Parenti is getting at is that then the remaining portion covered with
Right.
some type of a stone treatment would truly be a substantial portion and consistent with our regulation.
So you subtract, that way you get to subtract out those areas, so that
Correct.
ratio of preferred material becomes a higher
Well,
ratio.
because then the green part along the top is acceptable.
Correct.
And that's, you're looking at as against just the material between the windows.
Correct,
And so you have a substantial
absolutely.
portion that's acceptable under the standard. I mean, I'm not so positive that it winds up looking better, but
It
it
would.
does comply, you know. So.
Yeah. It really should be about looking better, I think, here.
I think it might make it look better, because then it would be more symmetrical.
Well, it
on
looked
both
like an
halves.
office building at that point, which,
My only comment is, we're not supposed to design it. You know, and we can throw around what might be done, but
Why don't we do this?
we're trying to find that happy number that makes everybody happy.
Are we
here.
still waiting, do we still have to wait for the letter from DOT on this, correct?
You're not going to get a letter from DOT. You're going to get when we go for the encroachment permit.
Okay.
You know, I had a nice sit-down with him. I sent him the drawings probably 3-4 months ago.
that's normally the extent that we get
Okay.
DOT to comment.
So this comment that's done already. So the only issue now before us is the,
It's the architecturals.
And possibly the parking,
and the parking.
depending
we
upon our
have.
conclusion with
Yeah,
the parking.
yeah.
You know, I think Paul's point is well taken. I mean, you can't really read that and say that that complies. I mean,
Right, yeah, I
you know,
agree,
So,
I agree.
you know, and then you have to sort of think ahead to what's coming later.
You know, I think the commission's shown some flexibility here, but at the same time, I think we can get a nice design if someone sits down and thinks about the facade of
Yeah.
the structure and says, we can get this preferred material, and this would look nice. It may take a little while to get there, a couple hours, I don't know.
Why don't we do this then? Why don't we continue this to our next meeting? That'll give you some time to talk it over, mull it over with your client, and decide which is the approach that you want to come back with. You know, we've discussed kind of the ideas that we have. Our next meeting is only 2 weeks away, and that, the two other issues, we can discuss the parking either now or at that time, when we have the full commission present.
you
I just talked with
introduce yourself?
I'm George Clausen. I'm working with Brett and on the project. And talking with Brett, he would be agreeable to the spandrel glass if that issue would then reduce the square footage that you're considering, and then add that planter along the bottom. This has been working on this thing for about 7 months, and we'd like to see this try to get into motion if there could be a decision made.
So now we're talking about the windows going the extent of the building in the areas that are
Right,
kind of recessed now.
right. And adding the stone planter and the stone facade.
Just going straight across the balance of the,
Right. I think basically they really would not, they like to maintain the theme of the building and not really sit there and try to redesign something, especially after the investment that they made 3 years ago. So they're looking to work with what they have on here.
does the commission feel that's sufficient? So the stone face planter would go the entire length of from where right. So in other words, it's not going to be separated between the windows, it's going to go the whole length.
Yes.
Okay. So we're picking up, in other words, you see on the balance of the building, the existing portion of the building, the stone's going to go in between the windows, then in between the window and door, then and so on. On the addition, it's going to appear from the street to go along the whole length.
Like I said, I mean, I think it brings the building into compliance in terms of this regulation. I feel more comfortable about that.
Yeah, I would agree.
But I'm not, just not being skilled in.
Nor is it our charge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so positive that you wind up with a better looking building. So, but
do we want to request that they come back with an architectural rendering of that design then? I guess is the question that's before us now.
Well, again, I don't know that I'd feel comfortable approving the application as it is now.
That's what I mean. So
I mean, you gotta, yeah, I think
so you prefer to
have
see it.
Oh yeah, I think they have to come back with something that that meets the architectural standards.
Okay. I think
because otherwise, I don't see where we have much discretion.
Right. Well, otherwise we're just guessing. And what you're saying is you want to see how it looks and see how it. I don't mean how it looks.
Again, I just threw that out as an idea.
Sure. Yeah.
But that may not be the best way of accomplishing compliance with the regulation. So.
I agree with Commissioner Parenti. I think we should hold off for the 2 weeks. I know that your client is in a hurry to get going, but I think if we come back in 2 weeks with a rendering demonstrating what we've talked about this evening, or another plan that you may come up with in the meantime, and then we can wrap things up at that point. Is the Commission in agreement?
Do you want to discuss your feelings on the parking at this time?
Do we want to wait till we have the whole commission to discuss the parking, as they're certainly going to review the tape? I think the history of the if there's been a problem with parking, the parking that's provided there now is how many spaces, Jeff?
10.
There's 10 spaces provided there now. Obviously, if the client had problems with parking or lack thereof, he would take this opportunity to address the issue. If we had gone to the maximum, it would have been 61 spaces. There's 49 proposed. Jeff, if you could flip back to the plan.
You'll probably get some additional space.
That's what I was getting at. I think we could probably squeeze in many more if we had to anyway. You could. In between there, you could line some parking spaces or reline the parking lot if need be to provide.
But we have more loading spaces than you normally would have because of this use. If it went to a retail use, you would not have all those loading spaces, and you could add those parking spaces back in.
And that's been one of the conditions that we've had also, is to not only demonstrate that the need, but also the ability to put in additional parking if need be. And I think it's fairly clear, looking at the plan, that they could certainly pick up the additional 11 or 12 necessary spaces if need be. So I think the parking is sufficient as shown, is my feeling on it. I'm not sure if the commission agrees or. Paul?
I think you can pick it up.
Yeah. That's what I was looking at too, that, if you relined it restriped it in a different manner and.
I've had tremendous amount of open area through here in order to allow trucks to come out of any of those loading areas and have free movement. If I eliminated some of those loading areas, I would not need all that maneuvering space.
So they've existed with 10 parking spaces to date, and now they'll be providing 49,
Right.
with the ability to get the additional 11 to 60 if needed.
Those spaces will be striped, but I can pretty much assure you they will not be used. They'll probably have lawnmowers sitting on them and other things there, but to demonstrate that if you were to go to another user or if he needed the spaces, he would have it.
So the point is you could line 60 spaces if you wanted to.
Yes.
And as I said, that's been the threshold. It's in our regulations also that we can allow for lesser than stated by our regulations, as long as the applicant can provide that they have the ability to put in the additional required parking spaces.
And that is assuming another type of use other than the use that
Correct.
he has here right now.
Right. In other words, when you have the building, if it goes in for a certain use that doesn't require a lot of parking, you want to make sure that it's a viable building in case that business goes out of business or they sell the building or whatever, that it's still a viable building for future use. And I think that's been shown here. So I don't feel that that's an issue. I think that we should continue this to our next meeting, review the architecture, and we'll take it from there.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. The next item on tonight's agenda is a site plan application submitted by property owner submitted by property owner Simone Development of Orange, LLC, for property known as 109 Boston Post Road. The proposal is to modify and refurbish the front facade. Canopies will also be added.
Good evening. For the record, my name is John Cruitt, and I am the architect representing Simone Development, who is the current owner of 109 Boston Post Road, the property known as Orange Town Center. What we propose here is a facade renovation to basically to the front of the building, and the various materials that we propose to use here consist of the synthetic stucco treatment, which will replace an existing painted concrete block on the upper facade. And one of the things we propose is to put a crown mold, which basically is made out of what is known as what they call an EFIS being exterior insulation and finish system build-out. These come pre-molded. They come in classic shapes. We have a working drawing document that we're going to submit to the building department regarding such a shape. I also have some exhibits with me which I'm willing to hand out to you people regarding potential profiles for these shapes. This is a 3D perspective of how the building will probably look once we do the treatment. You can see that we had retained the existing brick on the lower facade. around the storefronts, and the existing columns, which are currently brick, are going to remain as brick. So what we have is pretty much a continuous effect, whereas on the upper facade, we have a continuous band of stucco with the crown molding. We also decided to revise this particular treatment from the original building by coming out with some flares, which gives it a more classical feel. Yeah. Yeah, okay. And basically, that's it. It's a relatively simple application. And we're coming before the board with these particular exhibits. I do have a couple of extra colored exhibits which I'd be happy to distribute to the board so you can pretty much see how these look. These two copies are illustrations of how the building looks now, and these are smaller color illustrations of what we propose. And you can see how this looks in color, because I know in black and white it's very hard to tell. The elevation is basically an artist's rendition, but it gives you an indication what we want to do. There are existing canvas canopies, awnings. The owner wants to get rid of those and come in with a permanent structure. The permanent structure is going to be a finished metal canopy and fascia, which is pre-finished. It could either be, it's probably going to be a Kynar aluminum finished with a raised batten, and the owner would like to go with one color rather than the existing where you see red and green. He wants to go with all blue-green. So just to give it a more unified effect.
I have a question. In the photograph here of the existing building, it appears that the brick columns, if you will, go up to the roof height, and also the peak also appears to be brick in this as well.
Yes.
That's going to be removed?
Well, it's not going to be removed. What they have with synthetic stucco is a synthetic stucco over masonry application.
So it's going to be covered up?
Yeah, we'll cover it up. And again, we want, basically we want, the owner really wants to freshen up the building. He wants to bring the building up to the standards of the rest of the post road. He notices projects like Orange Commons, which he likes very much, which has a fairly similar feel and appearance, where brick was intensely used on the first floor, as will be the case with this project, and stucco was used as a good balancing effect. Also the raised batten metal for the canopy and fascia. So he wants to upgrade the building. Basically, the parking would remain the same, and there would be, the center, according to him, has more than adequate parking, so he's not going to change that. We are going to make minor improvements to the rear entrance, where we're going to enhance the rear entrance with brick and synthetic stucco, but those are less than 20% of the rear facade. So you will see that in the design documents that were submitted in the application, but basically the great majority of the work is going to be done on the front of the building.
So in the existing building, the area below the windows is currently stucco, it appears to be?
The area below the windows on the first floor is currently brick.
It's shown, is it painted?
I'm not
It's shown in the photographs here as being a lighter color. It doesn't match.
Oh, yeah. That happens to be, what that is split face block, and that is painted with a masonry coating.
Okay.
What I would do for you there is I would come in with thin brick or some similar material so that I can enhance the brick material.
Okay.
That's what I would do for you there.
So what we'd be talking about really is we'd be eliminating the brick or brick veneer on the upper portion,
Yep.
but adding a substantial portion of brick veneers
That is correct. He wants
to the
to,
lower portion of the
Yeah.
building. Do you see what I'm looking at?
he wants
Yeah, I
to
noticed that
improve
as
the
well.
bulkheads. He
Yeah.
does not like the bulkheads looking that way. They look plain, they look cheap. He feels that adding veneer brick to that with a similar appearance to existing brick would enhance the appearance of the building.
And the two end facades and the central facade would be eliminating the brick there and covering that with the stucco, correct?
That's correct. But the columns...
Columns
and
would remain,
The columns would remain brick.
and then brick would be used on the entire lower portion where it's,
That's correct. And also the portion that is behind the brick columns is also brick, and that would remain.
that's what I was referring
Yeah.
to.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically,
The first floor will be either brick or window.
That's correct.
Do you have any thoughts on the Taylor Rental building? As long as we have you.
Let's see his reserving comment.
Haven't been hired for that one yet.
Any thoughts or comments from the commission?
It looks like a very nice improvement to the facade.
Are there any thoughts or comments from the audience? There being none, does the commission wish to take action on this evening?
I think so.
Sure, I will move that we approve the application. That is the site plan application, architectural standards supplement submitted by property owner Simone Development of Orange LLC for this property known as 109 Boston Post Road to modify and refurbish the front facade in accordance with, plans that have been presented.
Okay. We have a motion.
Second?
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, at this time, it's 8 o'clock. We have to open the public hearing at 8 o'clock, correct? And we can go back to, okay. It's 8 o'clock, and we're going to open the public hearing, and then we're going to go and continue our regular meeting until such time, but we have to open the public hearing at 8 o'clock as per our regulation and for the state regulations. And I'd like to ask Commissioner Parenti to read the legal notice.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that on Tuesday, August 7, 2007, at 8 p.m. at the Orange Town Hall, 617 Orange Center Road, the Orange Town Plan and Zoning Commission will conduct public hearing on the following. Special permit application for the conversion of a single-family dwelling to accommodate an elderly apartment submitted by William M. and Mary Kate Thompson for property known as 555 Dogwood Road. The proposal is to construct an elderly apartment in an existing dwelling. A copy of this notice has been filed with the Orange Town Clerk, dated in Orange, Connecticut, this 18th day of July, 2007.
Thank you. The public hearing is now open, but we're going to, what's the proper phrase here, Paul?
Well, I know the homeowner is here today. It would be
Okay,
continued.
do we want to go with the public hearing right now, or do we want to continue our regular agenda?
You might want to just open it and
Okay.
we can update the commission
Okay.
in terms of what happened.
Well, the next one on the agenda is actually the Romano one, okay? And that's a continuation of a public hearing from our last meeting. This is a special permit application for the conversion of a single-family dwelling submitted by Robert J. and Mamie D. Romano for property known as 196 Orchard Road. Would the applicant like to come forward, please?
Again, William Ledetko, the company is WLP LLC, and we've been asked by the Romanos to assist them in the approval process and the construction of the proposed elderly apartment. Since the last meeting, we were informed of a change in the regulations that we were not aware of, nor was our surveyor at the time, regarding the lot coverage. We were not aware that the allowable lot coverage was reduced from 15% to 10%, which caught us by surprise at the last meeting. We asked in the form of a letter to modify our application so that we can better address the changes in the regulations that were made. The letter that was sent July 27th was states, as per our telephone conversation, enclose our 6 copies of the floor plan outlining our request for a modification to the current application. Now, the modified plan reduces the proposed lot coverage to under the 10%, which is now required. The previous proposal, we were working under the assumption that we were allowed 15% coverage. And again, we were not aware of the change that took place since our survey was completed. So what we have done to better conform to the regulations is we shrank the size of the addition, but in doing so, when I say shrank the size, we shrank the lot coverage. And in order to do that, we had to go up a 2nd floor. So in effect, we are putting in a 1-car garage, as was proposed before, and we're putting the bedroom above the garage instead of the bedroom on the ground floor. The elevation of the garage is basically ground level, which is approximately 12 inches below the existing 1st floor elevation of the house. What we did also was we outlined in orange the size of the proposed apartment. We also included the floor plan of the existing house. We made notations of the size of the proposed addition, 15 feet 9 inches by 21, which is outlined on the plan, 15 feet 9 inches by 21. We calculated the lot coverage of the proposed addition. We calculated the lot coverage that is allowed currently under the current zoning. We come in under those regulations. We're allowed 10%, and 10% of 30,098 square foot equals 3,000, approximately 3,009.8 square feet of lot coverage. Our proposed total coverage with the addition comes out to 3,004.75. So in other words, we're under what is required by the current regulation. The apartment square footage, we calculated the square footage of the proposed apartment, and we are under the 900 square foot that is allowed. We come in at 898.5 square feet. We are not including the garage as part of those calculations because the regulations appear to be specific to dwelling space. As you can see on the plan, we are still within this, we're actually within the footprint that was originally proposed, but we're utilizing a smaller area. If there's any questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
I guess I'd like to review, I know that Commissioner Parenti was concerned with it, and as was I. The calculations, you came up with 898 square feet, 898.5. I came up with slightly higher than that. So let's just review those just to make sure where we stand.
Yes.
What we call the bedroom, we have 11.9 by 21, correct?
You can...
11.75.
Stairway.
So it's 11.75
Correct.
by 21. So that's 246.75.
Correct.
We have the landing on the top, which is 4 by 5, 20 square feet. We have the landing at the bottom, which is 4 by 6 for 24. Would you concur with that? I mean, that's,
Yeah, yes, that would be reasonable.
I would assume that upstairs, that area would be utilized.
The
On the
upstairs...
second floor.
Well, that's what you just
That's
calculated.
the bedroom.
No, but what I'm saying is this going to be is that part there not going to be in the garage? That's going to be inside the house, correct? So in other words, that's doubled. You have the landing at the base of the stairs, and then you have the area above that in the bedroom.
Correct, I thought you just included that. Am I mistaken?
No, the first, we did the bedroom,
Correct.
we did the landing here,
Yes.
we have a landing here, which is
At the
twice.
bottom. Correct, yes.
Okay, so that's 24 and 24.
Yes.
We have the living room here, which is measured in several different ways. We have 17.6, so 17.5 by 19 feet across,
Correct.
which is 332.5.
Correct.
We have the bathroom, 7 by 12,
Correct. Now remember, those are outside measurements.
so that's where the difference is. These are
Not
outside
taking
measurements.
correct,
Okay,
not taking into
okay.
consideration the thickness of the 2x4.
Okay, so that's where we have that slight discrepancy. I came up with 902.75, you have
Right.
898.5,
Right,
and if
because
you
when-
use the interior measurements, that's going to make up that difference.
Correct, yes, because,
Okay.
yes, exactly.
Does the commission have any other questions on this application?
Elevation from the road, can you just describe to us what it's going to look like from the street? Where will that second story hit? Will there be windows, facing the road?
From our determination, by standing out in the road, we do not believe you're going to see any wall space of the structure because of the current hip roof of the house. What you will see from the road is a roof line. And at this point in time, we're trying to determine whether we're going to go with a gable or a hip roof. The house is a hip roof design house, so it would make sense to go with a hip roof design. And if we do go with a hip roof design with a 5 pitch that is currently on the house, it should blend in, and in our opinion, you should not see any disruption, so to speak, of the wall plane from the road.
Because from Orchard Road to the house, is an elevation there anyway. So the house is from Orchard, if you're on Orchard Road. Sorry, my voice is terrible anyway. From Orchard Road, there's a pitch to the front lawn and driveway anyway. So it'll be,
It's elevated.
And what about from Orange Center Road? Can you describe the change of appearance, if you will, from Orange Center Road?
Well, from Orange Center Road, if you're driving up Orange Center Road, currently,
by row hemlocks.
yes, currently what you see, again, I have to be delicate, I don't want to insult anybody, but currently what you see is a dilapidated patio with walls and masonry, and, something 50 years old that needs to be torn out. What you will see in its place is, yes, you will see a one-car garage, you will see a 2-story addition with a garage, but we plan on blending this all in, and in our opinion, it's not going to look as if it's an apartment. It will look like any other expansion of a home in Orange.
And even the entry door actually is not parallel to Orange Center Road. It's,
As a matter of fact, that entry door is existing. We are not changing that.
It is existing?
That's an existing door. Yes.
They went out to the patio.
Now, what is unique and actually what is quite nice about this plan is that the current house has all this space that is not currently being utilized. It was installed, I would say, mid-'70s.
73, 72.
When I say existing unfinished family room, what I mean by unfinished is the sheetrock is actually up. It is a room. It just was never taped, and it was the finished floor was never put in. But for all practical purposes, that room is, I would say, 90% complete, but it was never used. And
Nicest storage rooms in
and that existing full bath, I don't think the toilet was ever, excuse me, but it was ever flushed in that bathroom.
not even in there.
It's yeah, the bath is there, but the toilet,
Right,
the toilet is sitting in a box on the side.
Right.
So it lends itself perfectly for this situation. And I believe the intent of the regulations was originally to encourage, have a means to encourage the homeowners in town as they get older to stay a little bit longer. And this fits that perfectly. Mark, the son, planning to move back into the house in the in-law apartment, and elderly parents, so that they can stay there. I mean, this fits the intent of the regulations perfectly.
Do the commissioners have any further questions?
And just looking at my notes from the last time, my only real concern was as to the size of the newly created space,
Yeah.
which I'm satisfied with now.
Paul, do you have any issues, any comments, or?
No.
Are there any comments from anybody in the public? There being none, would anybody care to make a motion on this matter, or how does the
Close the
commission want to
public hearing.
proceed?
Close the public
Yeah.
hearing.
Would you like to close the public hearing? We have a motion to close the public
So
hearing?
moved.
We have a, okay. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on this issue, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Does the commission wish to take action on this evening? Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this special permit application for the conversion of a single-family dwelling submitted by Robert and Mamie DiRomano for property known as 196 Orchard Road. The proposal is to construct an addition to an existing family home dwelling to create a 898.5 square foot apartment to accommodate the elderly.
We have a motion, would we care to second it?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on tonight's agenda is the special permit application for the conversion of a single-family dwelling to accommodate an elderly apartment submitted by William and Mary Kay Thompson for property known as 555 Oakwood Road. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hello, I'm William Thompson. I live at 555 Dogwood Road here in Orange. And we're here to ask to convert our garage into an elderly apartment.
Now, it's my understanding that you've gone before the ZBA, or are planning to go before ZBA to get a variance?
We did last night.
And was a variance issued?
No, originally for this applicant, I didn't need an A2 survey, and then when we needed the variance, we ended up needing an A2 survey, which I didn't have. So I have to get one of
That
those.
public hearing is still open, and
Okay.
therefore we can't.
So
take
we
that.
really can't move forward on this.
Right.
There is one thing I'd like to note, so that you can come forward prepared next time, and that is that the proposed addition is connected to the house, as per your sample here, by a breezeway.
Correct.
That is not allowed by our regulations.
Would we need to convert the breezeway?
You
or-
would need to convert the breezeway to a permanent room. I can read that to you. It's under what,
Section
383140?
383140.
Okay.
One second. For the purposes of the section term, incorporation shall mean either completely within an existing principal building or added to an existing principal building, provided that both dwelling units shall be attached by a common wall, floor, or ceiling, and not simply by an attached breezeway or porch.
Okay.
So that has to be addressed. I guess you'd have to, probably...
There was some discussion as far as your window treatment, right, on that breezeway, or?
I mean, it's got permanent windows in it.
I think maybe if it was, I
Could it
don't
be
know
a
how you...
setting room, or, I mean, is there a restriction?
I think that in order to escape the, considering a breezeway, maybe to add heat to it, I'm not sure what the, what separates
We
it.
plan to add heat anyway. We were
Yes,
going to
that's
add
you-
an additional duct to that.
Okay.
That's usually been the way it's been handled.
And it has permanent windows. The only thing we have to do is to add the doors. It's just
Okay.
screen doors at this time, but we plan on adding permanent doors as well.
Okay. So if you can incorporate that into your application when you come back to us. We have plenty of time on this, right?
Yeah, this has to wait till September because the zoning board of appeals isn't meeting until.
Okay, now, do we need an extension of the public hearing?
I think the applicant just has to grant us the ability to extend the public hearing to that date.
Oh, that's
Do you
that's
agree to
fine.
that?
That's fine. The biggest reason, knowing that we had to extend due to the other thing, I wanted to come tonight to find out
Certainly,
any additional
yeah.
things we needed to do.
And Mr. Thompson, if you can call me on the ZBA application tomorrow, I'll help you with that.
Okay.
Okay.
And you do agree to the extension? of the
Yes,
public
I do.
hearing? Thank you very much.
Thank you.